Rohypnol, more commonly known as roofies or the date rape drug, is a benzodiazepine notorious for its illegal use at bars and parties within the United States. Its white color and dissolvable pellet allows for horrendous acts to be committed under the nose of its victims, is used for aid in rape and sexual assault, deeming it a heinous drug. Rohypnol is a depressant and a sedative that attacks the central nervous system after finding its way into the brain through the blood-brain barrier. Once the drug enters the cell of the brain, a euphoric effect occurs, a spiking of intoxication. It can cause drowsiness, loss of coordination, and impaired mental function. If taken in copious amounts or overdosed on, more drastic effects can occur, such as amnesia, extreme sedation, and even unconsciousness. So, how does this drug work? How do these effects come into play? And why is it so dangerous? Well, that is what you will be learning today. Before we begin to understand how Rohypnol works, we need to make sure we understand how a GABA signal transduction pathway acts, since it is the pathway that Rohypnol affects. GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, is a common neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It acts as a ligand that attaches to both G proteins and ionotropic channels. But where does GABA come from? GABA is synthesized in the cytoplasm of a presynaptic neuron. It originates from glutamate, an amino acid and other neurotransmitter which is released by glial cells. GABA is synthesized from glutamate by the enzyme glutamate decarboxylase. Once GABA is formed, it remains in the synaptic cell before chloride and sodium coupled transporters, referred to as GAT, carry GABA to the synaptic gap, where it will then be signaled to bind to receptors on target cells. Target cells will contain the G protein and ionotropic channels on its surface, which are ion-gated channels activated by the binding of a ligand to its site. GABA is a ligand that binds to receptors GABA A, GABA B, and GABA C. A and C are ionotropic channels that, when activated, increase the chloride ion concentration inside the cell. B is a G protein that, when bound to GABA, opens a potassium ion channel, letting the ions out. Both of these processes lead to the hyperpolarization of cells due to the increased negative charge coming from the lack of positive potassium ions and the influx of negative chloride ions. Due to the hyperpolarization of a cell, it is more difficult to send signals due to the increase in action potential, or stimulus needed for cell signals to be fired. This leads to decreased brain activity since signals are no longer being carried out at their full potential, causing symptoms such as relaxed emotions and drowsiness. Now, let's learn how Rohypnol disrupts the cell signaling pathway. Rohypnol, when ingested, will first make its way into the body and cross the blood-brain barrier, a semi-permeable membrane between blood and the interstitium. The interstitium are continuously connected tubes surrounding the brain cells, which explains how Rohypnol impacts the central nervous system. The reason why Rohypnol is able to pass through this barrier is because the blood-brain barrier's membrane allows for lipid-soluble substances, such as Rohypnol, to diffuse through it. This enables the fast-working effects of the drug. Once in the interstitium, Rohypnol will act as a ligand, like GABA. Rohypnol is a GABA-A agonist, meaning it will bind allosterically or at a separate spot from the GABA ligand to the GABA-A receptors. Once bound, Rohypnol enhances the effects of GABA by making the receptor more efficient, meaning that there will be an even bigger influx of chloride ions coming inside the cell and leading to even quicker hyperpolarization. Quicker and constant hyperpolarization leads to the diminishing of cellular signaling, further enhancing the dangers of Rohypnol. The longer it is binded, the more chloride ions will come into the cell. The constant flow of these ions keeps cellular signaling to a minimum or none at all. This means the brain and body are left vulnerable since cells cannot communicate properly with one another, hindering bodily function and mental awareness.